I love Comic Con. My first Comic Con was 1995. I came here as a young 19-year-old looking for a good job in comics. I showed my portfolio around to the different studios, and I got turned down. So I went back to school. I took an animation class, and my student film that I did, the storyboards, Marvel Films saw it, and I got hired as a revisionist at Marvel Films doing Spider-Man in the Fox 90s show, and that's how I started in animation. And then the following year, I came as a professional, which was nice. And then I've been basically in Comic Con every year since. I mean, of course, like I think the attendance is still the same, but in terms of like the different studios that are coming here, the kind of panels that they're having, I think it kind of fluctuates. I have noticed that there's almost too many panels to go to, and you can't get to everything. In the old days, you should be able to plan out your days. Now I feel like Comic Con needs to add another day just to squeeze even more in. But I mean, I like it. I mean, when the shift happened where you had Hollywood show up at the con, I kind of liked it because back then, it was mostly just I'd come here for toys and buy comics and original art, meet the artists. But it was kind of the same for the most part. And then when Hollywood came, you got the video games came over, a bunch of other things like tabletop games, a lot of things that people that I like because I'm a big geek and I like that kind of stuff. So I didn't mind it, and plus, I got to I would hang out in Hall H to try to stay in line. I did overnight to try to go to like the Avengers Endgame or stuff like that. So I like for me that I thought that was pretty exciting.
You've been in and around this industry for a long time. What draws you to such a smaller project like Cradle, and taking the reins of that when you've basically done it all already?
So what's funny about Cradle is that my buddy, who's also he's one of the voice actors on Tresse, Matt Yan King. I've also collaborated with him on a few projects that he was writing for me. He had mentioned, hey, have you ever read the Cradle books? I'm like, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's Will White. You should check it out. It's a really cool book series. So I went to Audible and saw it. I listened to the audiobooks. I got 3 books in, and I called my manager. I said, hey, find out who has the rights for this.
Oh,
And
wow.
then so they reached out to the Whites. I got on a Zoom call, and that's how I was able to get this all started.
Yeah, what scene or what part of the book was specifically, or what about the book, or what
Oh,
about the series really drew you to
well,
it?
for me, I mean, it's a progression series. It's basically, a hero goes from 0 to 1,000. But the one scene that I remember that really kind of stood out to me in the books, and this might be a spoiler, but there's a scene where Lyndon dies. Right, he gets killed by a character, by Lee Marcuth, and he gets revived, and the being who revives him, Serial, kind of shows him his future. Says, "Oh, you want to see what your future is?" And he's like, "Sure." And she shows him a future where he actually had a life that he never thought he would have. A normal life, right? And he's crying. And then what happens? It all gets taken away, right? Basically, everybody he knows and loves dies. And then he looks at Serial and says, like, "Well, how can I stop this?" And she's like, "Well, I just showed you what could happen, but it's up to you. You can change your path, but the path you have to do is you have to become the best, like most powerful martial artist out there to stop this." And so he's like, "I'm gonna do it," right? And I remember that scene. And I was like, "What a beautiful scene!" The fact that like he had this life, he had kids, he was crying, and then it all gets taken away, and he's like, "I have to stop this." She tells him, "You've got a good like 30 years or 40 years of your life to still go on," and I like the fact that he's like, "No, I want to take. I'm going to go the hard path, and I'm going to train to save the people I love." So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think, well, the idea was we were developing it as an animated series, right? That we were going to pitch at, the normal streamers. But we also thought, well, why don't we bring it to the fans first? Like, what do we do? So we wanted to do a Kickstarter to kind of generate more interest. The fact that we are planning on going into this route of doing an animated series, or in this case, we're doing a movie. And I think that's kind of where it all started about like, hey, let's try this. And especially since the last book just finished last summer, and it was really well received. So I thought, and I was talking to the Whites, and I said, well, this is a good time to just if the fans want more, I wanted more, and so I said, let's just do a Kickstarter and get it, started. Cool.
So knowing that we're only doing, and you mentioned that moment was in the third book, Lyndon goes a long way from there. When you're looking at that first series, what are you looking to do to make sure that we can keep on going and keep the train rolling? Because that first book is great, but there's so much cool stuff that happens later.
Oh yeah, of course. So the discussion was that we would do so the movie that we're doing is actually the first two books, and because so much happens in the other books, I was like, we got to at least fit this in.
Yeah.
Uh, and if we do get it we're doing that as a movie, we're still pitching it as a series, and as a series, the way I pitched it to Will was, we're doing this as like kind of director writer cut. I was like, hey, 7 years ago you wrote the first book. Let's retell the story. I told him I don't want to change it because the fans love it. I love it. But now as an author, looking back, what would you kind of plant a little earlier? What were the things that you would adjust? And so that way you're getting the fans would get kind of a director's cut of the Cradle series that they know and love, but Will didn't really have the forethought or the time at the time to plant those seeds, and we were going to do that now going forward.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
And plus, for me as a fan, I get to pick his brain. Like, hey, what would you do here?
You're the ultimate. Yeah, you're the ultimate guy on iteration.
Exactly.
101 Cradle, right?
Yeah.
You're the source. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think the main thing is that if you want a story that the whole family can enjoy, about a hero who works very hard to be the best, and that he travels a road that is difficult, and it's something that we all kind of empathize with, right? The fact that everyday lives, it's a slog. But I think the idea is that if you keep your hope up and keep your eyes on the prize and what you want to accomplish, you can accomplish anything. And I think to me, it's a very inspirational story, and it's a fun story. I mean, Will was able to kind of weave in and out with it. He's got memorable characters and instances and locations. I think that's something that everybody can kind of really attach themselves to.